Welcome back to Al Jazeera America. You're looking at a live picture of San Bernardino, California, where today police confirm at least 14 people were shot to death in a mass shooting in the Inland Regional Center, which is a facility that essentially comprises up to 600 workers who deal in social services in the San Bernardino area of California, which is just east of Los Angeles. At a news conference about a half hour ago, police said that upwards of 3 shooters were involved. The police chief for San Bernardino said the shooters came prepared, that they were dressed, equipped, presumably meaning body armor, and that they were using long guns, not handguns. He said that the shooters did not exchange any gunfire with police who responded, and that the police suspect that the shooters fled the scene in the moments before the police were able to get there. Police are on the lookout in Southern California for a black SUV, a GMC Yukon. And again, the police spokesman saying that there is no motive that police have established yet in this incident. This incident began about 3.5 hours ago. Joining us from Los Angeles with more is Al Jazeera's Jennifer London with some of the latest reporting. Jennifer?
David, we've arrived in San Bernardino, and when we arrived as close to the scene as we were able to get, the police barriers are up all around the scene, as you can imagine. We went to a gas station at the corner of Waterman and Orange Show, and at this gas station, we met an employee who told us that he was outside a little before 11 a.m. local time when he started to hear gunshots. And he said at first he was pretty sure it was gunshots, but he waited, and then he started to hear more rapid-fire shots. He said it sounded to him like it was coming from an assault-type weapon because the shots were so rapid-fire. He heard 10 coming immediately, one shot after another after another. He said he was with a customer. They went inside, and then they saw and heard police vehicles, sirens, ambulances, fire trucks, all heading in that direction. He says it's about less than a mile from where the shooting occurred. He said then a couple hours later, the police entered this gas station and asked for the surveillance camera video, and the people at the gas station were told the police were doing this because they were wanting to look through this footage to see if perhaps the cameras at this gas station may have caught a glimpse of this black SUV that police say they are looking for.
Jennifer, is it the sense that the black SUV was at that gas station before the shooting? In other words, they were filling up their tank for their getaway, or is it the suspicion that perhaps the black SUV was there afterwards?
It's not based on this employee's story. What he told us he saw witnessed firsthand. He did not say that he saw the black SUV at the gas station beforehand, and he didn't say that he saw it after. He simply said that the police went there, asked for the footage, and said they were collecting footage to see if perhaps this gas station is located on the corner, as I said, of Waterman and Orange Show, that maybe one of the exterior cameras caught that intersection and perhaps could see the black SUV. I think it's safe to say that any of the local businesses in the area that do have surveillance footage, that the police will be collecting that and looking through it.
Okay. In other words, yeah, great point, that all the surveillance camera in the area, in the hopes that one of these cameras may have caught a glimpse of the black SUV in question, that maybe they can enhance it in order to figure out if there are any identifying statistics, any identifying descriptors on that vehicle. Jennifer, can you give us a sense about San Bernardino right now? You mentioned you're there. What is the mood? What is the atmosphere, given that police are saying that as many as 3 suspects are at large?
Well, the mood inside this gas station was, this employee was, he was calm, but he also described feeling very, very anxious and feeling very concerned that this was happening in his neighborhood. We've heard people talk all day that, you see what happens in Paris and you see what happens at the various shootings in Colorado, but you don't think it's ever going to happen in your city, in your town, perhaps to one of your loved ones or friends. And that seems to be a feeling within the city, that people living in San Bernardino, 60-some miles east of Los Angeles, just didn't think that they would see a mass shooting happen in their city.
Jennifer London reporting from San Bernardino. Jennifer, we're going to let you go and do some more reporting from as close to the Inland Regional Center as the media is being allowed. And Jennifer's talking to people, and terrific information there about the police trying to track security camera surveillance from a nearby gas station in the hopes that perhaps that security camera may have caught a glimpse of the SUV as it was leaving the scene. Maria Innes-Ferre is here at the Al Jazeera headquarters in New York to give us a breakdown of the building layout, which becomes increasingly significant as we learn more about this. Inez?
David, I just want to give you a close-up of this and where it's located here in San Bernardino. And if we just zoom in right here, here is the Inland Regional Center. Our guest earlier was talking about the 3 buildings. These are them, 1, 2, 3, the conference center right here. This is a golf course right here. And over here is a more industrial area. And this is where the media is being staged right here. South of here is where one of the hospitals are, where some of the victims were being taken. And just north of here is about 2 miles north is where family members are being told to go and gather. I want to show you also a screenshot of their website saying that they've been open for more than 40 years and also serving 29,000 individuals with developmental disabilities. And just to show you on their Facebook page, they're being flooded with messages of condolences here. One person writing, "I'm in tears praying for everyone there, praying for you all." And Kurt Carlson writing, "From us, we're here, we know your pain." All of these messages of condolences on their Facebook page right now.
Inez, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Sadly, these shootings have become something of a common occurrence here in the United States. Unlike most developed, industrialized nations, the United States has far more of its share of mass shootings. Al Jazeera's Jonathan Betts joins us now with more on that. Jonathan?
Yeah, David, the numbers are frankly stunning. These kinds of shootings happen a lot more often than a lot of people realize. On average, America sees a mass shooting more than once every day. 12,000 people have been killed so far by guns in the United States. Now, when you include the rampage today in California, there have been 355 mass shootings in the United States so far this year. Keep in mind, there's only been 336 days in 2015. Now, these mass shootings are shootings where at least 4 people have been shot and or killed. The Washington Post has been tracking these numbers this year. Now, a lot of the crimes don't make big national headlines, but the numbers from today, 14 people killed in California, that would make this shooting the deadliest in more than 2 years since the Navy Yard shooting in Washington, D.C. in 2013. Now, since Friday alone, just Friday, the country has seen 3 mass shootings. That includes that rampage we reported on at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado on Friday. America is the most armed country in the world. There are enough guns for nearly every person in the U.S. And even the president says it is happening so often, America is becoming numb to it. Now, earlier he spoke with CBS News soon after the first reports of the shooting came in, clearly frustrated by what's happening. Here's what he said. And we hope to have that soundbite in a couple of minutes, but he repeated a phrase that he has said repeatedly, David, which is he's very frustrated by the amount of mass shootings this country has seen and frustrated by the lack of action by Congress despite the bloodshed and all the outrage from these mass killings. The script is becoming very familiar. And David, it is a conversation that will likely be repeated after today's shooting.
All right, Jonathan, thank you very much. Obviously, much of official Washington has been paying attention to this mass shooting in California, with the news breaking about 3.5 hours ago. And on the heels of the mass shooting in Paris and at the Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado, certainly a lot of anxiety in the nation's capital about the vulnerabilities that the United States may be facing and the rise, perhaps, of domestic attacks like this. President Obama, of course, has been briefed again on this latest mass shooting. Lisa Stark joins us from Washington with that. Lisa?
Well, David, Lisa Monaco, his Homeland Security advisor, informed the president about the shooting earlier today. We're told he is getting regular updates. And as we know, there are federal authorities involved, the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, very involved in this investigation in San Bernardino County. And if it turns out that it is a terrorist attack of some sort, the FBI will then take the lead. As Jonathan mentioned, the president spoke earlier today to CBS News. This was an already planned interview, but when this shooting occurred, he was asked about what happened in California, and here's what the president had to say.
My hope is that we're able to contain this particular shooting, and we don't yet know what the motives of the shooters are. But what we do know is that there are steps we can take to make Americans safer, and that we should come together in a bipartisan basis at every level of government to make these rare as opposed to normal. We should never think that this is something that just happens in the ordinary course of events, because it doesn't happen with the same frequency in other countries.
And the president also said that he hopes that folks come together to pass what he called common sense gun laws, such as stronger background checks. Now, as you can imagine, we've also heard from a number of members of Congress today tweeting out their sympathy, their horror about what has happened. I want to flag particularly two of them because these are the senators from Connecticut. And of course, that is where that horrific shooting took place at Sandy Hook Elementary back in 2012, with 20 children and 6 teachers losing their lives. So the Senator Blumenthal says Congress is effectively complicit for its inaction, complicit in these shootings. And Chris Murphy said, "Oh God, not again." And just in October, after the shooting at the community college in Roseburg, Oregon, after that shooting, Chris Murphy and Blumenthal both said, we are going to try again to introduce some sort of legislation. They want legislation that would expand background checks and tighten regulations for illegal gun purchases, and also close any background check loopholes. They have been unsuccessful in getting any legislation through Congress since Sandy Hook, which many folks thought would be a defining moment, enough of a defining moment that legislation would pass. But in fact, it has not happened, and there's no indication at this point that there's any appetite on Capitol Hill to do this. And David, we should point out there was a poll done by the Pew poll back in 2014, which showed a bit of a shift among the American public, and in fact showed, according to that poll, that fewer people supported stricter gun control than folks who did not support it. So Congress is mindful of that too, that the public has been shifting a little bit, and there's a slight majority in favor of not tightening up the gun control laws. So we do not expect to hear from the president later this evening at this point, unless there is more information. But again, he did talk to CBS News, and he did again say that we need to come up with laws, common sense solutions, some way to stop what has become all too normal here in the United States. David?
Lisa, the president also, of course, referred to hoping that these shooters can somehow be contained, given the fact that police in Southern California say that as many as 3, that they did not exchange gunfire with police, that these 3 may have fled in an SUV. Is there anything particular that's been triggered, say, at the FBI or the Department of Homeland Security as they monitor what's going on, given the possibilities that are still out there about what is essentially a staged assault?
Well, the FBI agent who did speak at the press conference earlier today said, we will do everything in our power to find and locate these suspects. And you can imagine that is exactly what they are doing. As Jennifer said, where the gas station she is located at near the scene of this shooting, they've already asked, law enforcement has already asked for the camera footage from there. The sheriff was asked about whether there might be camera footage from inside the building. He said there probably is. So the FBI is definitely up and running. So's the ATF, along with local authorities, to start checking every lead they can. Obviously, it's very concerning that these shooters, potentially up to 3, are on the loose and that their motives are unknown. The businesses, hospitals, schools in that area have been informed and obviously are taking precautions, but it's quite worrisome. And I'm sure I can guarantee you that the FBI has a lot of agents they've put on this already, and that the White House is being kept informed on a very regular basis.
Lisa Stark reporting from Washington. Lisa, thank you very much. Before we take a break, I want to get some reaction from Lou Palumbo, who's a retired detective from Nassau County here in New York. And Lou, you were just telling me a little earlier, you're confident that law enforcement will identify who is responsible for this and that they'll do it fairly soon. Explain why.
Because of the sophistication of our FBI and our intelligence community. And the one thing I do think that's important to note is an investigation of this scope or scale goes well beyond the resources and the ability of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office. This is going to take legs. It's going to be a domestic investigation. It could be rooted with contacts on the other side of the country, potentially foreign. This is going to be a very substantial investigation. I know from my relationships with people in this organization, the FBI has their hands in many things, as does our intelligence community. I am highly confident they're going to identify who did this, and I'm confident even further that they will apprehend them. You know, one of the things that they haven't really spoken to is the forensic information that's left at a crime scene like this.
And shell casings, identifying what type of bullet, what type of gun.
And your fingerprints that are on them when you have to load them into a magazine, for example. There's a lot of information. There's DNA there the minute you touch this. This thing has just started out. It's already running. It's in gear right now, and it's gone well beyond the jurisdiction of San Bernardino, the county of San Bernardino, and the state of California. They're on this everywhere at this point.
So by now, 3.5 hours into this, you're pretty confident that by now they would have identified, based on the shell casings, what type of, obviously what type of bullet, what type of gun it could be. They would have picked up the DNA off of the shell casings. They might have already, as we already heard, they're collecting surveillance video from nearby businesses to try to see if there was a glimmer of anything about this SUV. Take us through the next couple of hours in terms of what happens in law enforcement.
They're just going to continue to expand. They're going to tap into their resources. They're going to tap into informations that may have been communicated through the internet, you know, through tweets, and I'm not that computer literate, so you have to indulge me.
But even something about why, was there anybody inside this conference center who may have been a target for whatever reason, personal or professional?
You know, based on the nature of this facility, it's really hard to wrap your arms around the fact that someone in there may have been the focal point of this type of assault, you know, especially with 3 people. You know, and to speak to the conference center versus the other buildings that are contiguous to it, obviously the other buildings had offices and they conducted business. The conference center lends itself to exactly what it says. It's a conference center. It's where people come and congregate. Now, in doing their advance or the reconnaissance on this thing, the individuals that perpetrated this, they may have very well and very easily discovered the fact that they were going to have a large group of people there. This was an indiscriminate shooting. It didn't appear as if they singled out any one individual. You know, if we go back a week or so in Chicago, where we were made privy to the fact that people attached to drug trafficking and gangs executed a 9-year-old little boy. They were very specific in the target and in the mission. This was really a little bit off a departure from what we consider to be even our new norm. Our new norm doesn't lend itself to this domestically. We normally have one individual, as a rule, emotionally attached to something, or a clear-cut motive, as we just experienced in Chicago. I am confident the FBI, they are on this far more than the public could even imagine. They have come so far, and they continue to evolve in their information techniques and the community in which information travels.
So given, let's suppose that by now they've identified the weapon, they've come up with perhaps a list of who was inside this conference center to check off whether or not somebody might have been a deliberate target or whether this was random. Maybe they've picked up something on the surveillance video. Just with that information, in terms of the type of bullet and the weapon, what forensics, what information, where does that take them as far as the investigation?
Where they acquired these weapons, for example. You know, they're going to have informants. There's no question. You don't have to go into a gun show. And there's a whole discussion to be had about gun legislation. We need intelligent gun legislation. But you don't have to go to a gun show and buy, through a loophole of failure to provide identification, a mechanism to buy weapons. You can buy them anyway off the street.
So presumably, this evening, whether if they would have a pretty good idea where did these weapons might have come from, and they would be talking perhaps as early as this evening with whoever might have either sold them the weapons or produced the weapons, is to get a better sense as to who these shooters may have been.
Absolutely. And the thing about the firearms industry, you can buy the guns on the black market, but as a rule, you don't buy ammunition off the black market. Right. You've got to go to a retail outlet. They're going to hit every retail outlet. They're going to go into every distributor. They're going to create
and then they're going to look at credit card slips and receipts and find out surveillance video.
They will leave no stone unturned. That's the one thing I will tell you about them. And sadly, every one of these incidents fine-tunes or hones their skills of investigation.
Lou Palumbo staying with us in studio. Thank you very much. Jack Thomas Tamarchio served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security for Intelligence and Analysis Operations. He joins us by phone from Philadelphia. Jack, first of all, what is going on in the Department of Homeland Security right now, given that we know that, according to police, as many as 3 shooters involved, that they are at large, that this seems to be what we would describe as a soft target? How does Department of Homeland Security react to this?
Well, right now, the Department of Homeland Security is probably taking the second seat. Local law enforcement has got the con on this, so to speak. Of course, the FBI is involved. DHS, my old department, they do have people, obviously, that are involved. That are probably local to that area. But right now what's happening is California has an intelligence fusion center. There's one in Northern California. There's one down in Southern California. That intelligence fusion center is probably going to general quarters right now. They are trying to locate and get any information on who these alleged shooters are. And right now we don't know that. So, the apparatus, as your earlier guest was saying, the apparatus is right now working at full speed to determine, A, who these guys are, where they are, and of course to catch these guys.
And tell us a little more about this intelligence center in Southern California. Obviously manned with representatives from the FBI, Department of Homeland Security. As the information is coming in from police, from detectives on the scene about the type of bullet, the type of shell casing, the type of weapon, that then gets fed into this intelligence center, and what happens at that point?
Yeah, it's called the JRIC, the Joint Regional Intelligence Center in the Los Angeles area. And as you said, there are numerous agencies, federal agencies, local agencies, LAPD, certainly the LA County Sheriff's Department. All of these local agencies are involved in addition to the feds. And they're basically working right now to look at all tips and leads that are related to this particular shooting in San Bernardino. And the idea that the function of an intelligence fusion center is to analyze that intelligence and to literally look at the fuse that intelligence. What is important? What is white noise? And those are the things that the investigators, local law enforcement, is going to look to try and solve this horrific crime that has been perpetrated today in San Bernardino.
The San Bernardino police chief said that they had no motive. His words were, "We do not know if this was a terrorist incident," but he did say that the shooters came prepared. What does that add up to you in your mind?
Well, the first thing that I heard the first thing I thought when I heard about this was certainly I thought about Paris, and I thought about the possibility of a copycat type of crime, or a wannabe type of crime. When you have one shooter, you can say, well, that might be a deranged individual, that might be a former employee with a grudge, that might be a domestic situation that's spilled over into a workplace. But when you hear about 3 shooters, all of a sudden you're thinking conspiracy, you're thinking support networks, you're thinking weapons being bought, you're thinking operations, and this is an operation. This was, again, whether it's a terrorist operation, whether it's a link to ISIS or Al-Qaeda or any other group, we just don't know. But the first thing that came to my mind was this was a terrorist type of operation with 3 shooters.
Would you expect then that if it was that type of operation that there might be some internet claim of responsibility that DHS would be able to track and verify?
Well, that'll be one of the things that not only DHS but also NSA and other organs of our national security apparatus will be looking at. Certainly, if there is a claim, and there often is after these things, a terrorist group claims that they claim responsibility, that often gives us some clues and some signatures as to where these people are, who inspired them, how they got inspired, and who supported them and who funded them.
Do you have a sense about how quickly that information would come in?
It's really hard to say. Certainly, we would be looking for that right now. We're looking for all chatter, as you've heard that term many times. What's the chatter, either post or prior to an incident? So those known individuals who are out there as potential supporters or sympathizers or even operators, either domestically or overseas, that are actually now involved in chatter, they're being monitored. And we're looking for clues possibly to the identity of the shooters through that signals intelligence.
And as we talk with Jack Thomas DeMarchio, who's a former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security, I want to bring back in Lou Palumbo, retired Nassau County detective. Lou, you were shaking your head about something.
I just wanted to comment on one thing and not to contradict this gentleman, because he's very well informed and he's held a very substantial or important position in Homeland Security. But I will tell you right now, the FBI is in the lead. They're not going to sit back and wait till they determine, or San Bernardino determines, that they're no longer equipped to follow through or expand the scope of this investigation. This investigation is in the hands of the federal government, not just our FBI, I might note, but our intelligence community. They're connecting every link that exists.
But it's also fair to say that local law enforcement, even local FBI, would be complemented by the federal government paying attention to intercepts from overseas. Have there been any indications from some of the enemies of the United States that they might have been planning something at a soft target in Southern California?
That's all of what they're looking at right now. They're looking at every single thing. I said to you earlier, they're leaving no stone unturned. Communications, regardless of nature, canvassing neighborhoods, checking retail stores that sell firearms, ammunition, shaking out their confidential informants. It's a huge undertaking, and no disrespect intended to San Bernardino, but this is not what they do. Right. You see, I mentioned something to you earlier about how our law enforcement agents are armed and trained. They're really not armed and trained to deal with incidents of this type. And as a rule, with the exception of New York City, for example, they're not really equipped to investigate incidents of this type. You have to defer to the people that have their thumb or their finger on the pulse of these types of activities, and that's our federal agencies. And they're not going to lay back until they're content that San Bernardino can no longer carry them out. That's not how it works.
And as we, as the head of the FBI and the head of the Department of Homeland Security, and back again with Jack Thomas DeMarchio on the phone. Jack, at what point, what would it take for either the head of the FBI or the chief in charge of Homeland Security to then go to the president and say, okay, there's some new information that you need to know and that maybe you want to consider briefing the American people about? Can you envision that scenario?
Well, this is a process, and it's a process that's very much done through the interagency. When I speak of the interagency, I speak of the FBI, I speak of DHS, and I speak of other federal agencies, part of the intelligence community, working in concert with local law enforcement. So while Mr. Palumbo said that this is probably beyond the scope of San Bernardino, it's still their backyard. They do understand that they know the streets, they know the people down there, and this is an organization that, because it happened in their backyard, they will be involved. Now, in a terrorist incident, FBI and the feds have primacy. So they're going to come in and they're going to take primacy of the case. But they're certainly going to look for the assistance of the local law enforcement to have any information that they may have that could help them in solving this situation. So as to whether, people go to the president, I think that's real speculation as to where this goes. The president, of course, has been briefed on this. The interagency is on top of this very, very, very astutely, and they're engaged across many, many lines.
Jack Thomas DeMarchio, former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security, thank you very much. Also, our thanks to Lou Palumbo, who I believe is standing with us here in studio and will through the next hour. But again, in case you are just joining us, in case you're just coming home from work, again, police in San Bernardino, California confirm at least 14 fatalities from a mass shooting earlier today at a facility that was housing essentially social services for the disabled in Southern California. Police believe that up to 3 shooters were involved, that they did not exchange gunfire with police who arrived on the scene. So these 3 shooters, upwards of 3 shooters, fled the scene, escaped in what police believe is a black SUV. You can believe the search that is going on in Southern California right now for this SUV is unlike anything that California has seen in some time. Law enforcement on edge, the public on edge. We will bring you the latest information at the top of the hour right here on Al Jazeera America. But again, the latest news, 14 people killed in another mass shooting here in the United States in San Bernardino, California. 3 suspects, according to police, remain at large. I'm David Schuster. We'll return to Al Jazeera America after this.